is now.
Yeah, I think Alex.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's City Council meeting. We are all here. Some of us have more hair than we did last year. Some of us have less, but we're dealing with everything as best we can. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today, and I want to thank all of you for being here virtually. We're going to start the meeting with the consent agenda. No items were pulled. Can I have, and remember the rules. Hand if you want to make a motion, if you want to second it, so that way the clerk can get that. And if you raise your hand, I will recognize you during the course of the meeting to speak. So, Councilor Branch?
I move for approval of our consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilor Melton had the hand up first. So all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. The next item is the report and recommendation of the Planning Commission. We have Ken Bowers.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So we'll start as we always do with an overview of what's currently scheduled for public hearing on June 2nd. And there's one zoning case that you scheduled at your last or at your first virtual meeting, and then there are hearings on the budget and the 5-year consolidated annual action plan. So we have a abbreviated presentation from the Planning Commission agenda, but we also have slides available to go into more detail should you like. So next 2 slides, please. Okay, so the Planning Commission took action on 5 items, recommending you approval of all of them unanimously. There are 4 zoning cases and 1 comp plan amendment, and staff is recommending that these be scheduled for the June 2nd, 2020 public hearing. Do you need any detail on any of these items?
I cannot see everybody, so if you have a question or need more detail, just please speak up. Okay, I'll take that we're good, Ken.
All right. I move for approval for these items for the June 2nd meeting. This is Mayor Pro Tem Branch.
Second, Nicole Stewart. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that is unanimous.
Great. So we're going to skip through the background slides and go to the next phase of our presentation, which is a series of items for which the Planning Commission has requested a 90-day time extension. Here we go. There are 3 text changes that have either or passed their date for review or will soon. The accessory dwelling unit text change, the second phase of the design alternates text change, and TC 120, which is bundles together a few items, including revisions to parking requirements, building height, and standards for cottage court. There is also a rezoning case under review for which they would like an additional 90 days. I would be happy to take any questions about any of these items.
Well, Ken, let me ask you this. The accessory dwelling unit development option, TC 16, and also parking requirements, building height, and cottage courts, TC 120. This is not the first time that this has been through the Planning Commission. Granted, it's a different, some different rules. I would like to see this done quicker as opposed to sooner as opposed to later. If we extend a 30-day window, can we get this done and ready for our June 2nd meeting, those 2 items?
Yes, we think that we could work with the Planning Commission. They are planning to meet in May, and they have 2 meetings in which they could potentially review these items and deliver them to you by June 2nd.
Okay, then I'm going to make a motion to, for a 30-day extension for those 2 items. Do I have a second? Nicole Stewart, thank you. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We will do those two items in 30 days with the expectation they'll be back for our June 2nd meeting. The other two items, Ken, the design alternates. What is your thinking on that from a timing standpoint? What is it critical? And then Method Road.
So Method Road has not really been discussed. And given the uncertainty about our situation, I think 90 days is probably appropriate. For design alternates, if you wish to shorten that time, I would recommend at least 45 days to give them a little extra time, maybe in a meeting in June to get these back to you. As long as the items come to you at your first or second meeting in June, they can be calendared for a public hearing the first Tuesday of July. And so the schedule, if your desire is to try to address these items over the summer, could be met. So 45 days for design alternates.
Is everybody okay with 45 days for design alternates? Okay, can I get a motion for to approve 45-day extension?
Move to approve and allow a 45-day extension for the design alternates text change.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Melton. Do I have a second? Patrick Buffkin, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that was unanimous. And then Method Road, Ken, you said that had not been heard yet. So you feel that it would require extra time?
Yeah, I mean, the Planning Commission may be able to address the item in less than the 90 days, but I think it gives them a little bit more time, particularly now that they have clear direction to prioritize the text changes.
Okay, is everybody okay with a 90-day extension on this?
Yes.
Okay, what is this case, Ken? Can you tell me a little bit more?
Sure. This is a case to rezone a relatively small piece of property located in the block north of Western Boulevard from a little under a quarter of an acre from R10 to NX3. You can see that this case is surrounded by NX3, and the deadline for action had been April 27th, which is, of course, expired. At this point, I don't have much other information about the case.
Okay. So it appears that everybody is okay with a 90-day extension then. Do I have a motion to approve?
Councilor Martin here. I move to approve the Planning Commission's request for 90-day extension on the rezoning Z5019.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Councilor Stewart? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. That'll be for 90 days.
Okay, then the last item is a request for a longer time extension, 120 days, for Z3119 Needham Road. Go to the next slide. So this is a request to zone 30 acres from R4 with the Special Highway Overlay District to R10 conditional use. It's been deemed inconsistent with the future land use map and comprehensive plan overall. This case has attracted a fair amount of interest, and the Planning Commission has requested additional time for deliberation. I think the part of the thinking behind the 120 days is that perhaps a return to a more normal meeting venue might be possible within that time period, given the controversial nature of the case.
Whose district is this?
This one's weird. I think it's Councilman Cox, but it may be mine because the way the maps are drawn.
Oh, okay.
It's right off of 540.
I will verify this for a second. Sorry, just referring the, well, the site is currently not within the corporate limits of the city of Raleigh, so technically it's not in anyone's district. I'm not sure what district it would be in if it were to be annexed.
120 days seems to be a very lengthy time frame. Is the Planning Commission trying to work out some of these issues? If there is opposition, I mean, that will be part of their plan, but
Yes.
I'm a little
I believe that
queasy.
I believe
about
that their
120.
thinking is that within that time period there may be a return to face-to-face meetings, which would provide a better venue for discussing the issues.
Councilor Melton?
Yeah, I understand that request. I hope we're going to be returning to those types of meetings as well soon. Since there's so much uncertainty, could we not grant them like a 60-day extension and then reevaluate if they need more time when they hit that benchmark? Is it kind of splits it in half a little? I think 120 days is a really long time. I agree. It's 4 months.
How about we do this? Why don't we grant them 90 days like we did the last one? And if they need more time, they can make that request.
I think that's reasonable. That makes sense. If that's your motion, I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that'll be 90 days.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ken, thank you so much. Next on the list, hold on, bear with me, everybody, is special items. The first one is the extraterritorial jurisdiction relinquishment process, and that is Christopher Golden. Hi, Christopher.
Correct. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christopher Golden with the City of Raleigh Planning Department, obviously. And we've got a short presentation prepared if you'd like to see it. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Could you share the presentation, please?
Absolutely. So this relinquishment or this presentation in the memo is in response to a citizen petition we received from Molly Stewart with the Morning Star Law Firm and representing roughly 227 acres, which are at the intersection of Dover Farm Road and Tryon. And you can see that on your screen. It is in Raleigh's ETJ. It is out of the city limits. Obviously, it's in the Swift Creek management plan area. So it's a rather large set of parcels, as you can see. It's at the edge of our jurisdiction. And it was also requested that we provide information about the ETJ relinquishment process. In state code doesn't necessarily speak to ETJ relinquishment. It speaks more to extension of ETJ for municipal, for cities essentially. But we would follow the same process of action. So with the relinquishment process, Raleigh would need to amend or appeal the ordinance that originally extended the ETJ to that area. At the point that we did that through public hearing, Wake County would have 60 days to apply zoning to those relinquished parcels, and it would have to go through their process following local notification procedures. So in this particular parcel, it is in the Swift Creek, lands governed by the Swift Creek Management Plan. However, jurisdictional changes do not require an amendment of the ILA. Therefore, it does not require approval of all participating members of the Swift Creek Land Use Management Plan. In terms of zoning, if the property was relinquished, the county would place R40 watershed. That is their standard zoning throughout the entire watershed for rural areas, rural residential areas. And that's roughly one residential unit per 40,000 square feet. Limited commercial uses that would have to go through special approval, and that's similar to our R1 zoning district on every level. So it's the only difference is that county subdivisions do not have to adhere to NCDOT rules. So for the city of Raleigh, that means we require curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and street trees. So the county would not require that if it were relinquished. But in all aspects, it is similar. It is also both jurisdictions have to follow the guidelines of the Swift Creek Plan that supersedes everything. So any change in land use that would occur to that particular property would require unanimous approval by all partner municipalities. As far as city policy in that area, we do not support extension of utilities into the rural residential lands of Swift Creek. The one exception is if there's an emergency to public health, and in which case the property owners, if they needed to hook up to city utilities, it would be at their expense, and they would need to apply for annexation. So, and did you have any questions on that?
If you could take down the presentation, then I can see everybody.
Okay.
I'll know who to call on. Thank you, Christopher.
Sure.
Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Golden. I know that this is a very environmentally sensitive area of the city. My dog agrees. Perfect timing. I'd like to ask for a delay in this case so that we can better understand the various aspects of the case. My reasoning is that I'd like to better understand, the analysis of mainly what was just laid out here. But as a new council member, I know that how important this area of land is not only to the residents of the entire city, but to this area of my district. And I want to ensure that I'm honoring the work of past elected officials and residents who have done so much work to protect that area. And I feel like I need to do my due diligence to make sure that it's protected regardless of what decision is made. So I would like to move to delay the case for 2 weeks.
Before we do anything, I think Molly Stewart, who's the applicant, is on the line. Is that correct?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My understanding, yes.
Molly, is there anything that you would like to add? I think what you just heard was Councilor Martin say recommend a delay for 2 weeks. Is there anything you would like to add? Are you okay with that? Whatnot?
I think that's fine. I think it is important to be careful here, absolutely. And I think staff reflected exactly our thought behind this, which just contrasts the city's focus on urban development versus the county's experience in the more rural development, and really this is about the ability to develop in a more rural way, and in fact with less impervious surface. You heard about the sidewalks and the curb and gutter and city standards. So I've actually had a request to provide a little bit more detail on those very specific, more site plan level standards. So I will be sending along some of that additional information, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you. So Councilor Martin, your recommendation is to delay this for 2 weeks to the May 19th meeting?
Correct.
Is that what you were thinking? Okay, and that's a motion. Do I have a second? Councilor Buckin? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we'll delay that for 2 weeks.
Hey, Madam, I do have one question. When they come back in 2 weeks or provide in the manager's report, when did this property come into our ETJ? That's a question I would like answered, unless he has it now.
Actually, yeah, I don't have that information, but I can get that for you and provide it
Okay.
when I come back in 2 weeks.
All right, that'd be helpful for me. Thank you.
Sure. All right.
Okay.
Great. Well, thank you very much. There's one more question?
Councilor
Yes,
Stewart?
yes. Mayor, for this evening's public hearing on the Swift Creek Land Use Management Comp Plan Amendment,
Yes.
how does this impact that then? Do we need to delay that as well, or?
So I'm going to ask the city attorney. In light of the delay here, we have a public hearing tonight on a related matter. Should we delay that or defer that for 2 weeks?
There's no legal reason that you would need to delay it. I think the question maybe be better for the planners if they think that they're close enough related to each other that that's something you would want to do. If they're independent enough, you can go forward. So I'd sort of defer to Ken. Legally, you can do either thing.
Okay, Ken?
So I will explain it this way. The comprehensive plan amendment means that you have the ability to relinquish ETJ within this watershed without violating our adopted policy. You don't have to do it, but you have the ability to do it for this applicant or for some other applicant up to a certain point, after which point you would not be able to relinquish any more ETJ without being back in violation of the policy. So the question for tonight's public hearing is, do you wish to amend the comprehensive plan policy to give you the option to relinquish additional ETJ within this area? Right now, given where we are with the ratio of developed land to how much ETJ we have and the current policy, you cannot relinquish any more ETJ practically without violating that policy. So the comp plan amendment gives you the option of doing it. It does not require you to do it for this applicant or any other applicant.
So, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
My recommendation is that we have the public hearing, but maybe after the public hearing, we hold it and then bring it back with this other item in 2 weeks. Otherwise, if we don't have the public hearing, we have to wait until June to have the public hearing.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, there's no time limit to act after the public hearing.
Okay. So then we could do both together. Is everybody okay with that? Show of hands. Okay. All right. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is Linda Jones and Larry Jarvis, community engagement, consultant selection, and contract for services.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. It's very nice to see you. Thank you so much for all that you're doing to hold our city together during these challenging times for all of our community. So on February the 4th, City Council directed staff to identify a community engagement consultant. Whereas we have identified a consultant, we solicited an informal process and we received 4 informal proposals. And we are recommending that Mickey Fern be the selected community engagement consultant, whereas his qualifications and experience closely align with the direction that was given by council on February the 4th.
Okay. Any additional?
I'm sorry, I'm so used to seeing you guys up here. I apologize.
Does anybody have any additional questions? Councillor Cox?
Yeah, I just want to go on the record and say that our budget situation coming up, and also that we had CACs with numerous citizen volunteers. I think at this time, this is inappropriate to be spending this kind of money on a consultant coming out of our contingency funds. So I'll be voting against this motion.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor Martin?
I just want to thank Ms. Jones and the rest of the staff for going through with this process amidst everything that was going on at the moment. I know that it took a bit longer than expected, but I'm really excited that we were able to find someone that is a Raleigh native and that we're not working with a consultant that's going to fly in somewhere else in the country, but someone that is from here and someone with a resume that is as strong as his is really exciting, and I'm excited to see what he can do with the community. You know, I think that in a moment like the one that we're in terms of budgeting, our budget, while it is seeing a deficit in many ways, also means that our strongest asset is choosing where we spend our funds. And so as we move forward, our strongest public policy priorities will become very apparent. And I think that this council has decided that community engagement and strengthening our community engagement and being forward thinking and innovative is exactly what we're going to do. And this small amount of money to reinvigorate and revolutionize that process is a step in that direction. And so I'm really thankful to the staff for getting us to this point and finding us someone who is incredibly talented and nationally renowned for doing this work. And I'm really excited to see what happens. So I don't know if we need a motion to approve using council contingency funds, but would be happy to make that.
If that's a motion to approve using council contingency funds, could I have a second on that? Councilor Stewart? Okay.
Madam?
Yes.
Before the vote, I just briefly want to say that in light of both Councilman Cox and Councilor Martin's comments, I definitely think it's important that if we have any citizens that we believe can provide value add to, let's provide that information and contact to the consultant as we go forward. And that I'm actually, I am going to support this at this time because we have to do something to move the needle forward. Everyone knows how I voted last time and how I feel. But at the end of the day, we have to move the needle forward. So I will support this motion to move forward with this consultant.
Councilor Knight?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say I've never met Mickey Firm, but I've heard great things about him, and I'm excited to have him lead this effort, and look forward to working with him. And from things I've heard in the public, folks that are aware of Mickey and work with him are also very excited about this. So I think we got a good person that's going to help us improve our public engagement, and that's what it's all about. So I'm looking forward to working with him. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed?
No.
So Councilor Cox opposed, rest in favor. Thank you. Let's see. Thank you, Linda. Thanks for your hard work on that. Next, we have the report and recommendation of the city manager, and this is a COVID-19 situation update. Derek?
Right. Before Derek Reamer begins, I'd like to introduce the topic if I could. I just want to take a moment again to say thank you to everyone, not only our staff and our community for pulling together through this unprecedented and extended period, but also for the support of the mayor and council as we continue to adapt as we go. And so, we're going to try to provide updates at every possible opportunity, even if there isn't a whole lot more to talk about, or some of it is a bit of a repeat for you. But I did want to, for the purposes of the public, reiterate our goals as an organization. And I know you've heard this before, but I think it bears repeating. First, our number one of three goals is to do everything that we can as an organization to slow the spread of COVID-19. Secondly, we're going to continue to provide great service to our community. And as everybody knows, in some of those cases, that service looks a little bit different, but we're still committed to great service. And three, we're going to achieve those goals 1 and 2, by being supportive of each other, working hard as a team, and treating each other like good neighbors. And so that commitment to how we treat one another is also really important. So there's several items for update. I'm going to now turn it over to Derek Reamer with our Office of Emergency Management and Special Events.
Thank you, Ruffin. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Derek Reamer, Emergency Management and Special Events. I want to give you a brief update on the situation here, focusing a lot at the state level, and then some of the actions we're going to be doing here at the city of Raleigh. Currently, as of last evening, there were 914 cases reported in Wake County and 20 deaths. You can see the breakdown there by male and female and the age as well. Beyond that, there is additional data that the state made available late last week that breaks this down even further by zip code. And I know that's been of interest to a number of people, so I encourage people to go directly to the DHHS website to look at that data
And again, there's also the link to Wake County government's COVID-19 page. I want to talk a little bit about the governor's stay-at-home order because as of April 30th, that is now the order that we fall under. As you might recall, Wake County was under a separate, more stringent order that expired on April 30th, and so we now fall under the state's stay-at-home order, which goes through May 8th at the earliest. Some of the highlights of that order: continued restrictions of carry-out service for restaurants, or continued restrictions to only carry-out and delivery. Mass gatherings are restricted to 10 people or less. Now, this is a little bit different than what we had with the Wake County order, where we were at 0 persons. Now following under the state order that has gone up to 10 people. This does include faith-based services as well. Some limited retail establishments are permitted to operate, those essential businesses, so long as they take into account social distancing, certain cleaning protocols, and the screening of their employees for symptoms. Other businesses, your health clubs, entertainment venues, they remain closed. And very important, and you'll see this reiterated throughout this presentation, those long-term and congregate care facilities have very strict access and visitation restrictions. The governor rolled out a 3-phased approach to reopening the state, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that today because that's really what we're trying to base our reopening on. Those 3 phases are going to be data-driven, and each phase will look back at the data over the previous 14 days. So as you look down here, the 4 main data points, the first being the COVID-like syndromic cases over the past 14 days, and we want to see those going down. The number of lab-confirmed cases over 14 days. Positive tests as a percentage of those total tests, and that's important because obviously as we do more testing, we're going to have more positive results, so we want to take that percentage of that. And the number of hospitalizations over the past 14 days. In addition to those data points, there are 3 capacity level things that will need to be looked at. The capability to do more lab testing, increased tracing capacity, and some of you might remember we talked about contact tracing early on in this, and that's where folks go out and anybody who's tested positive, we go back and try to find out who they were in contact with, where they were, so we can really narrow down where the exposure happened. And so that takes a lot of personnel to do that, and so really trying to boost that capacity. And then the third is the continued PPE shortage that across the nation we're all struggling with to make sure we have adequate PPE for our staff. So phase 1, which would occur no earlier than May 8th, is what we would move into so long as those data points are met. And I encourage everybody to tune in this afternoon. The governor will be giving a further update on how phase 1 will be rolled out through the state. But during phase 1, the stay-at-home order remains in place. People must stay at home unless they are traveling for those essential activities, those limited commercial activities. Those stores that are open must continue to have social distancing and strict cleaning protocols, and gatherings are limited to 10 people or less still in that phase 1. During phase 1, some parks may reopen to the public. However, they are still restricted to those 10-person gatherings. Face coverings are recommended when you're out in public and social distancing is not available. Employers that have the ability to offer telework to their employees are continue to do so. That's a very good thing that's going on when available, and that will be encouraged, continued throughout phase 1. And again, those rigorous restrictions on nursing homes and congregate care facilities will remain in place. It's also important to note that Wake County does have the option to make a more stringent, or even the city for that matter, a more stringent stay-at-home order if we so desire. If we start seeing our numbers go up where the rest of the state might be stable, we can go back and do a more stringent order if needed. At least 2 to 3 weeks after phase 1 has gone on, we will move into phase 2. At this point, the stay-at-home order would be lifted. However, those vulnerable populations would be encouraged to stay at home. Some bars, restaurants, fitness centers, personal care services, and other businesses might be able to open, but at a limited capacity. So not fully opening, but limiting the number of persons in the facility, similar to what a lot of the non-essential business or the essential businesses that are open now are doing, where a certain percentage of the occupancy might be allowed in the facility. Some gatherings would be allowed at entertainment venues and houses of worship, but there would still be a limit on the total number of mass gatherings. That would be a little bit larger number, but again, the limit on those mass gatherings would still be in place. Public playgrounds would possibly open back up during phase 2. And again, the rigorous restrictions on the nursing homes and congregate care facilities. I'm going to say that time and time again. In phase 3, now this wouldn't happen until 4 to 6 weeks after phase 2 had begun. So at that point, the stay-at-home order would be lifted for those vulnerable populations. However, it would really be encouraged for those to minimize their exposure in settings where that social distancing is not available. There would be then increased capacity at bars, restaurants, and other houses of worship and entertainment venues, and a further increase in the number of people that can gather. Again, we don't know what these numbers are or will be, but likely continue to increase through each phase and possibly have restrictions well into the future. And there'll be that continuous rigorous testing on nursing homes and congregate care facilities. So with all of that, and I wanted to spend that time talking about the state's order because we're going to try our best to mirror our reopening to the state's phases. We're not going to be perfect at it, and not everything's going to be mirrored up exactly because of the work that we do is very different. However, we want to try to line it up where appropriate. The idea is we're going to continue to slowly ramp up services as each phase continues. Some examples you'll see there might be starting to do some maintenance, right-of-way mowing. The further we delay these things, the further behind we get, and we're going to have to play catch-up. A person on a mower can stay outside. They can socially distance themselves from other people, so that's something that we think we can begin doing sooner. Same with maintenance and getting buildings turned back on. In anticipation of turning the buildings back on to the public, we need to make sure that they're up and working. Buildings have been shut down for a while, and those systems remain stagnant. We want to make sure that we get them up and running. Then you can see other things as a phased approach, some summer programming from Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources, and then some of the later things, the programming at the Performing Arts Center complex where you have those large gatherings will be some of the later things we see in our phased reopening. Again, an item of note is PPE, the personal protective equipment, and the shortage that we've seen across the nation with this. We have a multi-departmental work group that has been looking across the city as a whole to make sure that we are getting enough PPE for the frontline staff that is working now, but also anticipating the staff that will be coming back to work when we begin to reopen the city, making sure that they have the available PPE that they need to do their jobs. So inventory is continuing. We're placing orders as best we can and trying to track down as much of the PPE as we possibly can to make sure our staff is safe. So I want to close with a couple slides just talking about the current state of the city. All of our city's facilities remain closed to the public. We encourage the public to continue paying their bills online via the website, telephone, and mail-in options. As a reminder, those interest and late fees have been suspended, so we really want to encourage people to continue to pay those bills as much as possible remotely. All permitted special events, all events at the Convention and Performing Arts Complex have been canceled through May 31st as of now. And parks, events, rentals, programming have all been canceled through May 31st as well. As a reminder, the only permissible use of Raleigh parks is the open space and the greenways at this point. Any staff who's come downtown or any other city facility that's open has been greeted with wellness checks. We're doing this just as any business that's open. We're taking temperatures of our employees, asking them a series of health questions to make sure that everybody is well enough to come into the building. So that'll continue as we continue to reopen additional facilities. An important note is the emotional well-being resources we have through our new wellness vendor, Virgin Pulse. Throughout this, it's very hard for people to take time to think about themselves. We're public servants and we're here to serve the public, and so it's important to make sure that we do take that time to take care of our physical and mental health. And so we've been trying to do a real good job in pushing that out to our employees to make sure that we are in the best condition to return to work when that time comes. We've used Microsoft Teams as a collaboration tool to work virtually, and that's been very successful. I think this is a whole new world that we're entering into, and we realize how much work we can do in Teams-based situations remotely. A couple other points. Planning and Development Services has really been using live remote inspections for a number of different services, which has gotten some good reviews. And as Ken mentioned earlier, the Planning Commission will be holding some virtual meetings to make sure that they can continue to operate and pass things on to you. So with that, I will take any questions you all might have.
Thank you. We have Councilor Buffkin.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for that presentation. I have two questions. The first is about yard waste collection service. I've been hearing a lot, as I know all the members of the council have, about citizens' concerns about when that yard waste service is going to resume on a normal schedule and collection route. And I saw that was part of our phased reopening. Can you more specifically identify a time period? I know a lot depends on how our progress goes, and we're all anxious to see those numbers start moving in the right direction. But do you have any more specific date? Could you even guess?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that, and if Ruffin has any additional, he can certainly chime in. But I'll say that one of the things that we're trying to make sure that we're doing is taking care of our employees and the safety of them. And with the yard waste collection, you're putting multiple people in a vehicle. And so before we can get to that point where we have multiple people in a vehicle, we want to take that safety into account. So I know Solid Waste is working very hard to formulate plans, thinking creatively outside of the box to utilize staff from other departments perhaps, chase vehicles so we don't have the same number, a lot of people in one vehicle, to get that back online as soon as possible. We know that's a pain point right now, but I can tell you that staff is working very, very hard to get that up and running as quickly as we possibly can.
Right. So, Mayor, if I could just add.
Of course.
Councilmember Buffkin, we are working as we speak on a proposal to try to get back out there sooner. And so I expect that we would make an announcement on that no later than the end of this week, and hopefully back out in the neighborhoods within the next couple of weeks. So I don't want to put a specific date today, but yard waste is a point of urgency. And I would say that's something that we're going to do and get out there as soon as possible. So more to come on that, I promise.
Great. Thank you for that. You know, our citizens have been very patient, and it's an inconvenience we all have to endure. But I appreciate that explanation. I know that resumption of the services being eagerly anticipated. If I may, Mayor, my second question was about park reopenings. Can you tell me what the status is of our nature parks, and are those reopened, and what's going on at our nature parks right now?
I am not entirely sure right off the top of my head which ones are open. I know
That's
that
okay.
the open spaces are all available, but I can certainly get a report on exactly which facilities are open in those areas and get that back to you.
Yeah, that'll be fine. I know some of the nature parks closed because of concern about proximity of parking and things like that. But if I could get those details in a follow-up, that'd be just fine.
Yeah, and if I could, quick follow-up on that also, Councilmember Buffkin, we're constantly updating our website on that. And so I could look over there real quick. I think that it's identified on our COVID-19 website for the city. So for any citizens that are listening, you can go to our website and it'll say which of those nature park parking lots are open. But we'll get that to you in a follow-up.
Super, thank you.
Then we have Councilor Knight and then Councilor Cox.
And this is a bit of a follow-up on the parks question. Derek, could you, I didn't catch the page, but the page that you talked about when our parks were going to reopen, there was a May 31st, I think, date on there.
So parks would open, and again, we're taking our lead from
you pull that back
the state
up,
on
Derek.
this. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. Yep. My question is just to how does that match up with the governor's phase in terms of okay, so it's
right. So
it's not the parks themselves is what this is. It's the only permissible use of parks is open space area. Okay. So this is just, it's not the parks themselves, and this is not, I guess the nature parks are separate from this. Okay, so it's not just park use, it's these specific things, events, rentals, programs. Okay.
Correct. And so that date is for the programming.
Okay.
And then when we're talking about reopening the parks themselves or the playgrounds, we would fall in line then with the governor's orders and what the state is prescribing, which I believe in phase 1, the parks would reopen to the public. And then in phase 2, I believe, is when the playgrounds would reopen. Again, trying to slowly phase everything as a reopening, but that May 31st date, which is what we've canceled programming for, and that's really with the assumption of that grouping of people together in one place.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
So if I could really quick, Mr. Knight. So what I would recommend is today our intention was to sort of broadly talk about the connections. And I don't want the public or the media to hear words like park open and then they interpret what that means. And so what I would say is that when we roll out our reopening plans, we'll be specific about what those categories mean. Playground versus an open space versus a parks building versus a nature preserve. You know, we have so many different types of assets that are under the rubric of parks. I just don't want people listening or the media to pick that up incorrectly. That May 31st date is really about events and programming at our facilities, which would be later than phase 1. So we will push out a reopen plan. We wanted to get an indication about the governor's date indication on the phasing, and then we'll roll out the full plan. So it's not a point of correction. It's just for the public purposes. We'll need to be specific so that people don't get the wrong idea.
And I think that clarification is helpful. So I think the more we can do that on the website, the better. But that's helpful. Yeah. Thanks.
Right.
Okay, Councillor Cox.
Okay, a couple things. I'll just chime in as well and say that people are anxious about having some availability of the parks, like at Horseshoe Farm Park. People have been parking actually illegally on the road in no parking zones because the parking lot's been closed. And so I've been having discussions also with staff about providing some at least limited availability of the parks. And it would be good because what's happening is that people are still going to our nature parks. They're just not parking in the parking lot because the gate's down. And they're parking illegally. A couple of other issues. I understand that city employees are paying into flexible spending accounts for childcare support, and that money can also be used for things like summer camp programs. And I've had some employees express to me concern that the money's going into flexible spending accounts and they're going to end up losing that money. And I was wondering what can be done to ensure that our city employees are not simply putting money into a black hole and then that money will be lost. And if they do lose the money, where does it go? So that would be one question I have for the city manager.
Certainly. Yeah, Mr. Cox, that's the first time I'd heard about that particular topic. So we'll need to research that a little bit. And if you have some additional information about what kind of employees or where they are, about where that is, that would be helpful to know that. We can talk about that offline.
Sure. I mean, I just think generally it's just any employee that's paying money into these flexible spending accounts.
Yeah, the flexible spending account is a federal IRS tax program that the city participates in. So it's restricted by IRS rules, and it just means you can put your money aside for a variety of different functions and purposes, including childcare, but medical, some types of different medical care. Well, that's, there's other programs that you can do. And so we can certainly look at that and try to be creative about maybe there's some other ways they could use the money that would still make it eligible. We have some limitations. In other words, it's in some cases, it's not within the city's discretion about whether or not. Now, what we could do is try to work with them to potentially turn off their contributions. So it's by year so that they don't keep paying in. But that is something we need to work with HR, and we'd be happy to see what those options are. But my point is that it's an IRS program, and some of those restrictions are not within our discretion. So we can look at that. At this point, the summer camps question is still an open question. And it's a hard topic for all families, not whether or not it's Raleigh Parks or city employees. we can all think about the challenges of putting together groups of kids in the summer and telling them not to, get within close proximity, much less touch each other. That's a hard challenge. So I'll be happy to follow up with you on that. And we would be more than happy to do everything we can to help the employees within our discretion.
Okay. Mr. Knight, I'll relinquish you for your question.
2 minutes. Oh, I thought you were done. Sorry. No, go ahead. Different subject.
I have a different subject as well. Do you want me to finish?
It's up to the mayor. I do have a question about something else, but whichever.
Okay, then I'll just finish with my second topic real quick. And it's just to ask the city manager for a report regarding our economic situation and what the impact is on our employment status. Are we losing positions? I know we're not filling positions. Are we losing positions? What's the impact on our full and part-time employees? And I was wondering if you could provide a report at the next meeting.
Certainly, we'd be happy to provide a report. For the purposes of the public who may be watching, we have instituted a non-mission critical hiring freeze. So that means positions that are not in specifically identified critical positions such as police and fire are currently frozen. We're not hiring additional positions as it relates to that. And we've continued to pay our part-time employees, but that's not something that we're going to necessarily be able to continue indefinitely. And so we're currently looking at options as it relates to what are the next phases associated with that. You will get a budget presentation on May the 19th that will also help to clarify a lot of where we are in terms of our financial position.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. Councilor Knight, if this is a different topic, let's save that for Mayor and Council report.
Well, it's related to this with Derek here, but I can.
Okay.
I was going to bring it up then, but I thought maybe we could bring it up now since we're going through sort of different topics within this. Is that okay, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. Derek, thanks again for all the work that y'all are doing trying to keep all this straight. I know it's difficult as all of these things are coming back online. One, we've all probably seen the letter from the restaurant owners and restaurateurs, local Durham and Raleigh. As you know, staying within the purview of the governor's phase in, I hope we're sensitive to the different sectors' needs, the retail needs, and if it somehow we can, if it's different, I know we can't go below the floor of the governor's phase in, but there's some way we can work, uniquely if there's a need to with different sectors. Obviously, the restaurant. Our small businesses around the local restaurants, if there's a way to do that, that would be great. So, sensitive to their needs, and if one way works better for them than it may in other parts of the state, I hope there's an opportunity to try to work with them on that. So.
And David, I'll have a report on that during Mayor and Council concerns.
All right, thank you.
Is that it? Okay, Derek, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
So, Mayor, that's all we have for the city manager's report today.
Thank you. Next, we have the report and recommendations from our committees, which have not met. And I would suggest that we continue not to meet unless there's something urgent. Just because of staff capacity and also, well, mostly staff capacity, trying to hold virtual meetings is difficult. Does anybody have anything on their agendas? So like Economic Development Innovation Committee, Growth and Natural Resources, or the Transit and Transportation Committee? Is there anything that we absolutely must deal with? No?
No, I was just going to point out that I am eager to hold a EDI committee meeting at some point during this council term, because we have not had one yet. And
I'm sure that will happen. Councilor Melton.
Yeah, as far as transportation, we don't have anything that's urgent, but I do want to mention if we can just get in the manager's update, just a status on our BRT, where we are with that. I think that'll be good information because I'm sure they're still working on that. So I think an update and something as well that can go out to the public would be very beneficial.
We could certainly do that.
Okay. All right, our next item on the agenda is the report from the mayor and the city council. So I'm going to start with Councilor Knight.
Oh. Well, that's nice. Thank you. Usually I'm last. Maybe this will make mine be quicker. So I got a few things. Again, hope everybody's staying safe during all of this, and please stay connected as you can if there's any questions and thoughts and suggestions. All of the district counselors had listening sessions last week, and from what I understand, they all went well. I felt good about the one that I had, a good turnout and a good response. So good to have that connection with our district community as well as the rest of the city. And in that, one topic that came up that I think a lot of people are thinking about talking about is, how best do we stay safe during this time period? And we all want to get outside as much as we can. And there is some concern about on the greenways, on the sidewalks, trying to keep our appropriate distance from each other. I know there's ideas out there around pop-up temporary strollways, walkways where since there's more pedestrians and bikers out now probably than ever before and less vehicular use than ever before. Is there some ideas there? I know staff has been looking at this, thinking about this. Other cities have done the same. So just want to put that out there. I know there's some interest in it. Would it be, what parts of the city would it be in? Where are the best places? Are they in neighborhoods? Are they more of a downtown area? So I think that's just something to put out there. There is a functional safety side to this as well as recreational, societal part of this as well. So, and then, I'm also interested in long term as we come out of this to be able to do this type of thing, opening up, an area like South Glenwood would be great. So I think the usage, this is, I hate to call it an opportunity, but, I know the staff is monitoring all parts of the city to see how things are going differently than they are during normal periods of time. So I think this is one where we look at and see if there are opportunities to make something different and possibly better out of what's going on in these small, different little issues and areas and cases. So I just want to put that out there.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Stewart?
I'm not actually finished, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I want to request for tonight's session on.
Can't you take a hint?
No, I'm not very well. I'm sorry, too old. I know. Take a hint, I would shave and cut my hair. But this is important. To ask the council to allow both sides to have 4 minutes to hear on the Strickland case, which is Z-23-19. Folks on both sides did not make the Friday cutoff to be part of the public hearing. And so with all this going on, they are requesting that. And I'm requesting the council allow that to be done so that the clerk can get them the information they need to be able to be part of the public hearing tonight. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. Thanks. And last, on a lighter note, I've been told that I've been replaced by a lion in a suit. So hopefully, I'm more of a grizzly bear kind of guy, but I'll take the lion as long as it's roaring. So supposedly, somebody's taking over my silhouette. So hopefully, it's better than what you had to look at before. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Stewart?
Report.
Councilor Buffkin?
Thank you, Mayor. And Thank you, Mr. Knight, for raising several of those issues. I agree with a lot of what you said. I also wanted to share, as Councilor Knight mentioned, I held a listening session by Zoom chat last week on Tuesday evening. I thought it was a great success, got lots of positive feedback, and I appreciate Councilmember Martin helping facilitate that. I've also been asked to do it again, which I'm considering, and I got lots of homework to look in for people's questions, so I'll be sending those to the appropriate staff as soon as I can get to them. It's been a challenging time. It continues to be a challenging time, and I'd be remiss if I didn't express my appreciation once again to the staff for all they're doing to support the community, my colleagues on council likewise, and to every one of our city residents that's abiding by the stay-at-home and social distancing restrictions and guidelines. We're in for a little more hard time yet, but we're all anxious and hopeful to see things improve. So we all look forward to that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Branch.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, had a District C meeting listening session. Thank you, Councilor Martin, for helping organizing that for everyone. Had some good conversations, mainly around affordable housing. I think transportation, those are the top two. I look forward to the presentation at our next meeting as far as affordable housing bond and the work that the committee will present. So definitely look forward to that conversation as we move forward. I am one of the two representatives to the Go Triangle board. And I do want to make sure everyone is aware that Go Triangle does have a new executive director, Charles Lakuta. He's coming to us from Baltimore. I apologize if I said his name wrong. I tried to say it multiple times to make sure I said it right. But he goes by Chuck, but he has already started working with Go Triangle, working virtual, working remotely until he can properly move down to the area. So I want to make that announcement. Over the last couple of weeks, this is for Ruffin and Solid Waste. We received multiple calls about streets and neighborhoods being missed for trash pickup. So hopefully those issues have been rectified. If there's something that you all need in addition to help, please let us know as council so we can help. But as we do receive calls, we will relay that message. But definitely I know of at least 2 separate neighborhoods within my district that were missed over the last couple of weeks. So if we can make sure those are addressed going forward, it's greatly appreciated. And lastly, I just want to thank the staff, thank our workers for everything that you're doing, from solid waste to our operators that are out there keeping the city moving. I was on a call yesterday that included Governor Cooper, thanking transit workers across the state of North Carolina that I was invited to, because they're the ones right now that are definitely keeping our municipalities going, helping people get to work. And I want to make sure that they have the tools that they need to properly do their job. And also our police officers. They've been in the media a lot with a lot of protests. We're the capital city, so people are going to come here. But one thing I want everyone to know is that our state capitol police are the lead agencies on all the protests dealing with state government, with Raleigh serving as support and backup. And I want to thank our chief as well as all our officers for the support that they're giving to our state capitol police. So that is all I have.
Thank you, Councilor Branch. Councilor Melton.
Yes, thank you. I have 4 things. One of them is something that Councilmember Knight touched upon, so I'll start with that, and I'll try to be brief. I have been meeting with some community advocates about this Safe Streets initiative or providing some more space in the right-of-way to pedestrians and cyclists. And I've been coordinating with staff. I understand that the city has some limitations because a lot of the materials that we would need to set up more space in the roads or right-of-ways are being used for other items right now. Like we set up all those curbside pickups for our restaurants. But what I would like to do as we begin to slowly emerge from the stay-at-home order and follow the governor's guidelines on lifting restrictions is look at ways over the next couple of weeks as we're starting to move forward to reallocate some resources towards providing some more space for bicyclists and pedestrians in the right of way. And I think there may be a good opportunity there for some synergy with providing restaurants some more space too, as they attempt to reopen. So what I would really like to do is see if we, at our next meeting in 2 weeks, we could have an update, maybe some ideas or some practical steps the city could take for council to consider. But I do think that this is a meritorious policy initiative, and I'd like to set it in motion if possible. So I don't know if we need a vote on that, but that would be my hope and desire.
Sorry.
I yield to the city manager.
Thank you, Councilmember Melton. Yes, several of the council members have expressed an interest in this topic, and we have been talking to the staff. And so I think a report or a presentation at our next council meeting in general at a concept level would be fine. I think we would probably need to follow up with more details. So if everyone's comfortable with best effort, so to speak, for May 19th, that's fine. And that would be helpful. To your point, there are some trade-offs, and selecting where can be a little tricky because, lots of folks want to do it, but there's only so much space or time. But I do think that's something that has gotten a lot of attention. We're happy to do that. One thing I will mention is May 19th is going to be kind of a big agenda. So that's, I also don't have a problem with that, but just know that we'll probably be a little bit more extended in our time period for that meeting, but we'll be happy to bring that back on May 19th.
Okay. The second thing is something Councilmember Branch touched upon, but there has been a lot of media attention recently about some demonstration and protests concerning the stay-at-home order. I'm an attorney, so I understand the Constitution and the First and Second Amendment, but some of the questions that are being posed to me and to the media and in the media are a little more complex. So if possible, I'd like to ask the city attorney to prepare just a written memorandum or something in writing explaining enforcement of the stay-at-home order, specifically the laws concerning open carrying and how that relates to demonstrations and protests.
Mr. Cox, you want to?
Well,
you want me to talk? I'll just wait to be recognized.
Yes, if you could respond to that, Robin.
Yeah, it is. Yes, we can definitely prepare that type of memorandum. There are state laws and city code provisions that apply to protesting and firearms, and we can prepare a memorandum for you for that. And it's all come to a head more now with the stay-at-home orders, but we will get the law for you as soon as possible.
I think that would be helpful for everyone's understanding and if we're receiving questions as well.
Glad to do it.
The next piece is related. I think all of these issues being in the media recently have stirred up some other, tensions and conversations in the community. And I think that it would be helpful to get our police advisory board up and running to help facilitate some of these conversations. So I'm just curious if we can get an update on where we are in that process, because I think it would be great to get that moving.
Ruffin?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So we are working hard to bring that back to you. The deadline has just recently closed for applications. And so one of the things that we're looking at doing is placing that update to you for your May 12th work session, which is next Tuesday, to brief you on that status, and then placing that on the agenda for your May 19th council meeting for approval. As you may recall, May 12th, we were using your 4 o'clock work session primarily for budget, but given the urgency of that particular topic, staff believes that we can be ready to present that to you on May 12th at the work session and then put it on the agenda for a vote on May 19th. And when I say for the public's purpose vote, that means to appoint the members of the committee.
Yes, we'll also have the Commission on Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs as part of that discussion on the 12th, with the vote scheduled for the 19th.
And I have one last thing. On March 3rd, when we enacted the new required neighborhood meeting for large and impactful rezonings, I had also asked the city attorney's office to look at the provisions of our code that require public notice, the mailings, the public notice, the mailing requirement. Our code currently says that mailings go to property owners. We had asked the city attorney's office to look at options for expanding notice to renters in particular and to more residents. And I'd like to know what process has been made on that. I attended 2 of the district listening sessions last week, and that issue did come up, and I think it's extremely important. I think providing access is very important to this council, and that's a big piece of it. So I'd just like to know where we are in that process and when we can expect it to come back to council for determination.
We have one particular lawyer in our office who has been working on that. He has all the information together and is putting a report together, and we will get that back to you about methods to contact non-property owner parties. And there are several different options. Some are better than others, and we'll bring that information back to you, and you can give us direction on how you want us to proceed with that.
Great, thank you. I'm glad it's being worked on, and I really appreciate it. And that's all I have. I tried to be brief.
Councilor Melton, one thing too, and with rezonings that came before us, before this new code was put into effect, they follow the old rules, not the new rules. So what I would expect is as we start moving forward with new rezoning requests, that we will have this in place as part of what we requested on March 3rd to complement the efforts we're trying to do in terms of community engagement.
Yeah, this provision about mailings going to property owners has existed in our code for a really long time. Councilmember Stewart raised the issue during the last council term. And then when we enacted the new neighborhood meeting, I asked the city attorney to look at it again. So I think that now is the time to make this change if we're able to do it.
Okay. Councilor Cox.
Yes, a couple things. I would like to support Mr. Melton in the request for information about open carry. It was reported to me this morning that someone actually visited the farmer's market with several firearms, including a semi-automatic rifle. And so I think we do need clarification about what is permissible and not permissible as far as our open carry laws are concerned. On some other issues, it's been reported to me by a citizen about flooding on Jacqueline Lane before Bassett Hall Court on the approach from Capitol Boulevard. Apparently the road is continually flooding and becoming dangerous during our heavy rain events. So I was wondering if someone could take a look at that. I'd also like to have someone follow up on a parking situation on Bardwell Road. Apparently there have been some illegally parked vehicles, including an illegally parked trailer and an unlicensed vehicle. And there's been parking on both sides of the road, and that street is narrow. And some of the elderly residents along the road are concerned that the fire hydrant on the street is blocked, that fire trucks cannot actually get down the street to get to the fire hydrant. And they've actually had conversations with members of the fire department who have confirmed to them that this is the case. So one of the things I'd like to do is, one, I'd like to follow up with the police department about actions that are being taken as far as the illegally parked vehicles are concerned. And then the other thing is I would like to ask the transportation department to take a look at Bardwell Road and see if it could qualify for parking on one side of the street only, and as a way of making sure that there's enough room for emergency vehicles to get through the road. Third item, in our last meeting, we approved small business grants. And since that time, a number of citizens have come to me who own businesses but don't have storefronts, but they've been impacted by the economic crisis. And one person owns a pet care business. Another person has like online dance lessons because they can no longer hold them in person. There are construction workers, for example, that operate out of their homes. And these people have legal fees, they have professional association fees, they have licensing, they have insurance, they have ongoing vehicle and transportation costs, they have bonding fees that they have to pay for. And those businesses have also been impacted well more than 25% of their income. And so what I'd like to do is make a motion that we remove the storefront requirement for our small business grants. So I make that motion.
Is there a second?
And this would allow us to be able to provide some equity to these small business owners to allow them to also be able to apply for small business grants.
Right, there's no second for this. I would just like to add that the contracts have already been signed with the Carolina Small Business Development Fund and with Wake Tech. Wake Tech has already started distributing funding. So I think to make a change at this point in time would impact what we've already done. We'd have to go back to square one and undo the contracts and move forward. The other thing, Councillor Cox, is this issue came up. In fact, you brought this up at the last meeting. You also tweeted about it during the meeting. The appropriate time to ask us to consider at-home businesses was at that last meeting. You didn't do that for some reason. So I think it's just time that we move on. We had some tough choices we had to make. You voted in favor of those tough choices. So our process has gone forward, and we have a webinar set up on Thursday in English and in Spanish for small business owners, 49 employees and under with a storefront who have major rent to pay and whatnot. That was the way we decided to go. And if that was a concern of yours, it should have been brought up at the last meeting.
Well, thank you for your perspective on this, but I do think that regardless of the bad timing, we should always take an opportunity to be able to extend, equity throughout our city. And by having this storefront requirement, we're leaving a lot of small business owners that are hurting, that are outside the process now. But that's fine.
Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. I certainly understand Councilor Cox's viewpoint and agree with that viewpoint, but I also understand that given the amount of money that we had at the time, we had to make some really tough choices. And that's why I supported the decision that we made at that time and stand by that choice. And I don't think that removing that barrier at this point would be fair to our partners that are distributing the funds or fair to those contracts that have already been signed and the funds that are being distributed. But I do feel like this gives us an opportunity, should we find additional funding in the future, that we look at other opportunities with our partners to potentially distribute funding to non-storefront businesses in another manner as well. So I think that this is not necessarily an either or, but that we look at this as an opportunity to, extend funding in the future should we find it.
So just a quick update, the Wake County had a discussion at its meeting last night. They're looking at a $5 million fund. They're exploring different partners. They're also going to do a set aside of $1 million for people who say rent a barbershop chair or like have more of that at home, like they're not the owner, they're not a tenant, but they still have those expenses. So they're setting aside $1 million for that. I feel that the county kind of stepped in and has an ability to cover that cost. And with the CARES Act funding that they'll be receiving, probably in a much better financial position to do so. So that's where that is at this point.
Okay, I just have one more item and then I'll be done. I also held a community meeting last week, and we had quite a bit of discussion about community engagement. People are still interested in continuing with the citizen advisory councils. They would like to be able to hold virtual meetings where they could be supported by city staff and be able to have members of the police, parks, transportation, planning, etc., be able to participate in those meetings. So what I would like to do is, and what I will do, is make a motion that we reinstate support of city staff for our community advisory councils that are planning on going ahead and holding their virtual meetings. So that's my motion.
Is anybody interested in seconding that motion? Motion fails for lack of a second. Ruffin, when we first discussed this, I thought that city staff could be available to meet with community groups. Homeowners, they currently meet, well, not currently, but they have met with homeowners associations and others. How are we handling that going forward when we can meet again?
Sure. So the staff's interpretation is that moving forward, the staff would participate at any neighborhood or community-based association's request to attend if available. So the CACs had a degree of staff and financial support that was above and beyond what most community associations had. So for example, if you have a neighborhood association meeting or an HOA meeting, and they were to say, well, we'd like the police department to come and talk to us about safety in our neighborhood, we do that now. And so we would do that going forward, just like any other neighborhood or community-based organization. There's no real difference to that other than we have to make sure that the staff is available so that they can work out the schedule. And so if we get a request from a neighborhood or community-based organization to come and present at that meeting, we would continue to be able to do that. Now, whether or not, I don't know the issues specifically around virtual meetings, but I don't see how that would be treated any differently. Again, it's about scheduling and availability of a request from a neighborhood association, and we would treat them all the same based on that request.
Councilor Branch?
Yes, and just so you know, I didn't second that motion because my CACs, they're moving forward with working through their neighborhood associations right now, as far as scheduling meetings and getting that and inviting staff to those meetings. So they have, I guess they have their built relationships within the captain within the district. I have 3 captains that cover my district. So they're working to have those meetings, reach out to staff, reach out to inspections, but they're working through their neighborhood associations, and some are working through their HOAs. I've been to HOA meetings where we've had city staff already attending. So I think the very motion that you asked for is already in place, and is already available. So that is something I just wanted to go ahead and say that it's there. They just have to make the request, as our city manager said, to make sure staff is available for the meeting.
Councilor Melton?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on that. You know, on our city website, we maintain an entire page about the Raleigh Neighborhood Registry, and groups can register there and have access to city resources and staff. And we've mentioned HOAs a couple of times, but it's not limited to homeowners. And I just wanted to make sure that we call attention to that fact, that the page itself says eligible groups include homeowners associations, neighborhood associations, block clubs, community watch groups, garden clubs. You just have to register. You register, you get access to community resources, access to staff. And I think that's a pretty good tool that maybe a lot of folks aren't aware of. I just wanted to point out it's not just HOA. So if you're a renter, if you have any sort of neighborhood-based group, you have the same rights and access as the homeowners.
Yep. Okay, Councilor Martin.
Thank you. Just a couple quick things that are just updates. I also held a district meeting and want to thank the district reps that participated and helped coordinate, and also the at-large members and the mayor who helped us pull that together and participated. And a special thank you to at-large Councilor Melton, who helped when my rogue pigs decided to interrupt my meeting.
Every tough question, that pig just busted in and I had to...
Yeah, anytime the word CAC was mentioned, my pigs came running in on cue. But
I'm disappointed that your dog just barked today and I didn't get to see your pig.
Well, she's here right now
There's
on
Mildred.
cue again. I'm not. This is hilarious. So, most importantly, a huge thank you to Travis Bailey and Anthony McLeod. Both were gracious volunteers to help the 4 district reps pull off those meetings. So while they're both working full-time jobs and dealing with family, they also volunteered their time that week to help us prepare and help us moderate those sessions, which many of them ran over. So a huge thank you to both of them. I'll continue to hold those meetings as well, and send you all the dates and times. The only request and update I have was that last Monday there was a tragic pedestrian-related death by vehicle in the district. Out by Lake Johnson, a young man who graduated from Enloe was killed while crossing by Lake Johnson, and certainly something that came up quite a bit on the District D webinar, and something that has garnered much attention online. And as we think quite a bit about what mobility looks like across the city and how we use this moment in COVID to reroute some of our policy. I wanted to request a small change or potential update to the city manager's report, if possible, and if there are no objections, to include if there are deaths related to vehicular related deaths with pedestrians or bikes, that those be included and reported in the weekly manager's report, so that we start tracking those and having access to the reports that are made public as well. I think that would just be an important policy tool for us as we start grappling with a growing city and folks that are looking for alternative modes of transportation, that we just start realizing the impact that cars have on roads that are not always built to be thoughtfully shared with those looking for alternative modes of transportation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We will be happy. Well, happy is the wrong word, but certainly willing to put an update in the manager's report. I may want to follow up with you a little bit about what information you want to include. There's some investigation, some safety investigation reports that go along with that. I'm not exactly clear if that's what you're asking for, but we can follow up offline.
Let's do that.
Regardless, regardless, we can certainly put that acknowledgement in the manager's report after the event occurs. Okay. Hopefully that won't be very frequent.
Yeah, let me talk with the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem and also at-large Mayor Melton as well, just on the transportation front overall, and get their thoughts. And then you and I can speak, and I want to make sure we're all synced on what this could look like. I just want it to be a helpful tool for us as we start to gather data points across the city.
Well, and as a reminder, you may recall that last year, although I can't remember if that was the previous council or this one, requested a pedestrian safety review through BPAC that is currently underway and is scheduled to come back this year as well. I don't know how much of that work has been deferred or not. So those things are all wrapped together. There's multiple pieces we just need to wrap them all together so we can get to the same place. But absolutely, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, awesome. We'll follow up. Thank you. That's it for me, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I have 4 items. The Raleigh Hall of Fame has asked me to make this announcement during today's meeting. So I'm going to read off the news release. The Raleigh Hall of Fame recognizes the people and nonprofit organizations who have made significant and lasting contributions to the city of Raleigh. With this community-minded focus, the Board of Directors has voted to cancel the 2020 induction ceremony slated for November 2nd, 2020. While the ceremony is not until the fall, there is a great deal of personal interaction that happens now as the nonprofits work to tell an inductee's story and celebrate their significant contributions to our community. In this challenging year, we have chosen to focus on sharing the inspiring stories collected from inductees over the last 15 years. We're a community built on passion, perseverance, hope, and generosity, and the 200 inductees are the foundation on which we stand. Their stories reflect Raleigh's deep history and give hope to a promising future. Let us gather strength from those who have tirelessly gone before us. They had made this decision, not lightheartedly, but felt that this was the best way to move forward. So we can all celebrate the work of the inductees who have come before us the past 15 years. So that's the first item. Second item, this is something that we've been working on with the Downtown Raleigh Alliance and others over the past 2 weeks, but I just wanted to raise the issue because of the phasing that is going to be happening with the stay-at-home order, especially as it impacts restaurants and small businesses. So we have been working with DRA, the city, Cameron Village, North Hills, and others, talk about ways we might support our restaurant industry as we start these phased openings. So for instance, can we use parking spaces in, say, Cameron Village, where restaurants could set up tables and chairs instead of have cars there? There are lots of rules associated with this, which is why we have to give this a thoughtful, just some thoughtful consideration and work with staff on it as well. But we've also talked about potentially opening up some of our downtown streets. So restaurants could expand their service capabilities. I think the letter that David Knight referred to earlier, restaurants cannot afford to open at 25% capacity and make money. So that means most of them would continue to stay closed or offer just takeout. So we're going to be working with them to see what might work. And I just wanted to kind of do a check with everybody, make sure that as we move forward, this is okay. So just consensus on that. Yes, Councilor Stewart.
So as DRA liaison, I want to thank you for bringing this up. I know that you've been talking with Bill King and others over there. The one thing I've got in my mind is how we do this in a fair way if we're using public space to allow some restaurants to be able to open and profit where other restaurants may not be able to use that same benefit. Yeah. So just to caution that, knowing that we're not going to create a perfect system, but to throw it out there. So thank you.
Yeah, Bill has some good ideas on that and on how we can work that out. So anybody else? So everybody's okay moving forward with this and getting, David Knight, you're muted, but I see you doing this. So, okay. All right, very good. The third item is just an update on our small business fund. We got a really good reception for this, and so far, really happy to say that Jim Hansen from PNC and Adrian Cole from the Chamber have both agreed to co-chair this effort with the corporate community with me to raise funds. We have just started setting up meetings for later this week and next week, but we've already raised $200,000. And these were with people just stepping forward who wanted to help. I just want to give shout outs to Duke Energy, PNC, Biogen, Bank of America, Capital Broadcasting Company, and Engineered Tower Solutions for their contributions. Some of the money will be going to Wake Tech. The majority of it will be going to the Capital Small Business Development Fund, but I feel like we're making great progress, and I think I have about 6 calls scheduled for later this week. Jim has calls scheduled and Adrian does, so I'm hoping that we can reach our goal, but the reception has been really good about this. You know, we have so many companies who are struggling in different ways. Like I spoke with this one group who they are doing a bunch of tenant relief for their employees, losing or deferring at least millions of dollars of payments. as we get through this. So it's amazing the types of things that people are doing in their own ways to support our small business and community. So it's just been really great to hear these stories and also reconnect with members of our business community who are just really concerned and dedicated to what we do and how we move forward. So that's been very fulfilling. And then the fourth item is I just want to remind everybody that we have a code of conduct and that we need to follow the code of conduct. And I'm not going to say anything more than that, but we need to be careful and we need to be respectful and we need to be respectful of each other. So please reread the code of conduct if you need to. But let's make sure that we show each other respect and our residents respect as we move forward and govern during a very difficult time. Thank you. So after that, we now have appointments. Clerk?
Okay, let's see.
Where'd she go?
Okay, I see all of you guys. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to each of you for participating and getting your hold on.
I lost you, Gail.
I know, thought I was on.
There we go.
Okay.
There you are.
For participating and submitting your ballot the new way. You all did great. And just for the public, I'd like to say that the council does participate in nominations and appointments to the committees by ballot, but the results of the ballot is a part of the record. So you can find out how each voted on each one, even though it sounds like when we're reporting it, it's a total secret, but it is a part of the record. So with that said, what you had on your ballot this time, Appearance Commission, you had one vacancy. There were no nominees. Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, you had one vacancy. Councilmember Melton nominated Carrie Brasness. I apologize if I kill these names, but that's it. Environmental Advisory Board, two vacancies. Council members Melton and Knight both nominated Jess Anatilis. The next is the Historic Cemetery Advisory Board. You have two vacancies, and it's been suggested that we hold these for a while because the board is looking at the possibility of decreasing their numbers, realign, and they're studying their bylaws and may come in with a recommendation that we decrease the numbers. So we'll just hold that until we get a report, if that's okay with you.
Councillor Stewart has a question. Excuse me. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. Gail, I wonder if there would be any room to consider merging the Historic Cemeteries Advisory Board with the Historic Resources and Museums Advisory Board. If that's something that they're considering or something we can add to their list to consider.
I think I have suggested that for quite some time, but maybe if the council suggested that, it would carry much more weight than if I suggested it. So I will, if it's the will of the council, I will suggest to them that the council ask that they consider that possibility.
So Councilor Branch?
I agree with that. If they definitely, if they would consider that, since they're looking at reducing that board anyway, I think maybe the merger would be a great time since they're both looking at historic resources.
Okay, I will pass that information to the board as they are considering how to move forward.
Thank you.
The next is Human Relations Commission. You have three vacancies. Councilmember Branch has nominated Crystal Melvin. The next is the Raleigh Transit Authority.
Gail, excuse me. We actually have 5 vacancies on the Human Relations Commission. And I was going to suggest that maybe we take a pause and have something in a work session where we look at the charter of the Human Relations Commission. I find it hard to nominate anybody because I'm not sure what they're charged with or what the goal is, what kind of talent we need on the commission, whatnot. I think it would be good to have a conversation just to discuss where we are and where we see us heading. And then, I mean, 5 members of a board is significant, especially for a board that is this important. So I think having a discussion in a work session could actually be beneficial. Perhaps Dr. Caesar could kind of take us through and see where she sees this leading. And Councilor Branch, would you mind holding off on your nomination until we kind of go through this process and kind of look at things?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I think some of this is because we've had some vacancies since the last city council, where no one was nominated to replace. So people have been working until, as we know, the people on the committee continue to work until we nominate someone. So I think that's why we've led to this backlog, and we've had some people resign, step down. So I'm fine with us reviewing the role of the commission going forward. I know Dr. Caesar actually presented a presentation last year on related to human relations, fair housing commission, and there was some other committee on how they can work together, and she had some suggestions. So I think it'd be good information to start from for this council and where we go forward.
I think it could be helpful. Okay. So Gail, let's pause on that, on the Human Relations Commission appointments, and ask Ruffin if you could schedule this as part of a discussion in a work session.
We'll be happy to put that on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. The next is the Raleigh Transit Authority. You have one vacancy, an alternate member, and Robert Owens received 7 votes, so he would be elected, and so the Transit Authority was now back at full force. The last is the Substance Use Advisory Commission. You have 1 vacancy and no nominees. Okay. Then the next is your appointment process, and this is where you are getting first-time announcements and start making nominations. The first is the Appearance Commission. You have 1 vacancy. Excuse me, I'm sorry. You have the Appearance Commission. You have 3 vacancies. The terms of Martha Ellerby, Clarence T. Mann, and Jake Levitas are expiring. All are eligible for reappointment. Ms. Ellerby and Mr. Levitas would like to be considered for reappointment. However, Mr. Mann says he's on another commission and has to make some choices and does not wish to be considered for reappointment at this time. So
I would make a motion to reappoint Ms. Everly and Mr. Levitas, and then ask for a second. Councilor Stewart? Okay. That's a second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. One thing I would like to point out with this commission is a glaring lack of diversity. So when we look at potential candidates, I really would like us to look at qualified people of color who could serve on this committee. Hate when I see things get that out of whack, but let's really give this some careful consideration as we move forward.
And Mayor, I'd like to take this opportunity. We're in the process of rolling out a new way for people to express interest in the various boards and commissions, as well as providing you with, or the council with a listing of each person who has submitted an interest form when a vacancy becomes available. right now, if someone is interested, go to the city's website, departments, go under city clerk and then to boards and commissions, and it will pull up all of your boards and commissions. It will have information, there's a block for each one, given information on their mission, meeting times, current membership, and current, it has the minutes and everything, and fill out the form there. It's very easy to do, and then that information will be submitted to the council. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to do a PSA here, and hope we can get some more interest and people to serve.
Okay, thank you.
All right, then, so you made the 2 appointments to the Appearance Commission, leaving 1 vacancy, which will be on your next agenda. The next item is Arts Commission. You have 3 vacancies. The terms of Chonda Branch, Daniel Clegg, and Natalie Brown are expiring. Ms. Branch is not eligible for reappointment due to length of service. Mr. Clegg is eligible and would like to be considered for reappointment. Ms. Brown does not wish to be considered for a 2nd term. So you have 3 vacancies, and so the nominations are open. I think Mr. Buskin might have a nomination that he had sent to me. So
I also have a nomination. Let's first deal with David Clegg. Would somebody like to make a motion to, Corey?
I move to reappoint David Clegg to the Art Commission.
All right, seconded by Counselor Stewart. All in favor? Aye. Okay, great. Patrick, you have a nomination and I have a nomination. Do you want to go first?
I'm certainly glad to, but I'll defer to you if you want to go first.
No, please go.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to nominate for the Arts Commission Isabel Villa Garcia. She submitted her form to the clerk's office.
Okay, and I would like to nominate Billy Warden.
Okay, very good. Those 2 will be on the next ballot for consideration or additional nominations. The next item is the Environmental Advisory Board. You have 1 vacancy. The term of Benjamin Bobe is expiring. He is eligible and would like to be considered for reappointment.
Okay, would anybody like to make a nomination? Councilor Melton, do we have a second? Councilor Martin, okay. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Unanimous.
Okay, then the next one would be the Historical Resources and Museums Advisory Board. You have 1 vacancy. The term of Clara Bass is expiring. She is eligible for reappointment and would like to be considered for reappointment.
Would anyone like to make a nomination? Councilor Branch, second. Oh, Councilor Cox. Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, unanimous.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bass is appointed. The next is on the agenda is the Human Relations Commission, and so we will hold that until after you have further discussion. I'll just hold all of the expiring terms aside until you report. But just for everybody's information, according to your policy, the current people will continue to serve until you make a decision as to how you want to proceed. Okay, then the next one is Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board. You have 1 vacancy. The term of Marcia Presnell Jeanette is expiring, and she is eligible for reappointment and would like to be considered.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve this appointment? Patrick Buffkin?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Ms.
Okay, you You made the motion, Counselor Cox seconded it. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, opposed? All right.
Very good. She is reappointed. And the next one is the Planning Commission. The term of Edie Jeffries is expiring. She is eligible for reappointment and would like to be considered for reappointment.
I'm going to make a motion to, to nominate Brian O'Haver.
And I'll make a motion to reappoint.
Can I get a second from somebody? Counselor Martin? Okay. And then, we don't need a motion, do we?
Yeah, I'm confused. You were
we don't
nominated.
sorry about that. Okay, and Counselor Cox, you have made a nomination for Edie Jeffries.
That's correct.
Okay, you have both of those, Gail? Okay.
Right, I've got it.
Thank you.
So if there are no other nominations, those two names will appear on the next ballot, and of course it would continue to be open for additional nominations if you so choose. Okay, with the public service announcement, I think I'm through with nominations and appointments. The mayor, you seem to have a question.
We have Raleigh Convention and Performing Arts Center.
Oh, I quit before I finished. I'm sorry.
You got too excited about the public service announcement.
All this. The Raleigh Convention and Performing Arts Center Authority, the term of Russ Jones is expiring. He is eligible for reappointment and would like to be considered.
I would nominate Russ Jones for another term.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Branch. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Counselor Buffkin, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm a little out of order, but our clerk was moving so efficiently through that I didn't get a chance to express my interest in joining Councilmember Melton in nominating Kari Barsness for the BPAC. But if I can do that a little bit out of order, I'd like to be added as a nominating her.
Oh, okay. You just want to join okay. I'm with you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm backing up to appointments and joining Mr. Melton in nominating Kari.
Right. I gotcha.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll go slower next time. And I apologize to Mr. Jones for trying to finish before we got to him. Okay.
I was just going to add that for the record, I was planning to nominate Billy Warden to Arts Commission as well. The mayor did it first, but if you can reflect that I joined the nomination, that would be fine too. I forgot to jump in since Councilman Buffkin did anyway. So there we go.
That's great. We can keep up with you.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I'm through now.
Okay. Next, we have the report and recommendation of the city attorney.
I don't have a report today, Mayor.
Okay. Next, we have the report and recommendation of the city clerk.
I'm up again. You received the minutes of the April 7 and 21 council meetings and special council minutes for consideration.
Move for approval.
Second by Nicole Stewart. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
I think that's all.
I think that's it. Well, we will now recess this meeting until 7 p.m. where we have, I believe, 4 or 5 people signed up for public comment, and then we have our public hearings. So we'll see you all virtually at 7 o'clock. Thank you.